and Chase, Colton, oops, just throwing stuff on the floor. I destroyed my remote in second period on Friday, so I'm one of you ones who should be interested. You don't need to do it at all. I don't know about what almost 15 years. So, I'm missing so many people. Oh, good job. Keep your patience, man, please. Parades are being held at 4 this afternoon. I had sent out a note in Canvas if people wanted to retest. In fact, let me double check my thing and make sure that nobody, since I checked it last night, asked for it. No, I didn't see anybody. If you, for whatever reason, didn't take the test for the 15th, you were automatically put onto it. And I sent out a message. Let's see. Okay, I got more people online. Let's see. ESS. Okay. On Friday, we talked about ice ages, and I had to sort of mention glaciers a little bit since they're related to each other. Right button. Let's see how hard it's going to be for me to use this remote. For this opener, okay, besides it has to be cold, you have to have snow. What is necessary in order to actually form a glacier? There's one thing in particular that we mentioned Friday, that all glaciers have to have in order to actually form, which is why there was a southern ice cap with Pangea, but there was no northern cap. Lands, yes. You can't have a glacier form without land for the snow to accumulate on. And I can't remember with Friday how much of this that we went through with the different classes, but there are a couple of different types of glaciers. There's two major categories. What you think of as a glacier is what we call a continental glacier or an ice sheet. They're big, huge, massive areas, but you have to have land or you're not going to have a glacier develop. It can't. Now, eventually it can spread out into ocean water, but it still has to have its origination somewhere on land. Oh, I am so tired this morning. I think that's the last one. When I get through with this, I will go through and double check and let you know if you did not do. Let's see, I want to say it was from the 21st, the one on mountains. That's the last one that will be on progress report. Like I said, they're pulling it at 4. So most of you are keeping up to speed with everything. But here, that's the one I was looking for. It looks like, from what I'm looking at right now, and I haven't checked it this morning, it looks like the people that did not turn in the one from the 21st, I mean, unless you just did it, that would be in here, Colton and Erica. I'm not sure about the opener because I don't have that open in Canvas right now. Oh, I see Josie. I believe so. Yeah, but the one from the one from Friday isn't going to make it on for progress report because it's technically not due until after that 4 o'clock pull time that the school is going to do. Let me get back. Okay, so when we started up this section with plate tectonics, we discussed a couple times that the plate tectonics themselves is the primary controlling factor on the temperature of our planet. There are a bunch of things that all work hand in hand, but the single most important temperature controller for this Earth is the actual Earth itself. Where's the land, where's the water, and how much of the water is in the liquid state, and how much of the water is in a solid state as ice. If you've ever been skiing, or really anywhere with a decent amount of snowfall, you can feel the sun bouncing off of the snow back up into your face. Snow albedo feedback, it's a positive mechanism. What albedo means is to reflect. And land reflects better than water, okay, but ice reflects the best of all of them. There's a reason why people that live in desert areas, when they wear, I'm sure there's a term for that, like the robe type thing. I don't know what it's called, but they're normally white. It's a temperature control mechanism. Not always, not always, but it helps keep them cooler. So glaciers reflect sunlight. They bounce it back into space. Anything that's bounced back into space isn't absorbed by the planet, which is how ice actually perpetuates an even colder environment. The more water that's locked in ice, the less liquid water is actually free to be able to absorb the heat from the sun. We will talk about all different kinds of both positive and negative feedback mechanisms next 6 weeks. And the primary one that we're dealing with right now is this particular ice versus water mechanism. But the more ice, the less water. And I believe that we watched, I don't know why this one's not in a meeting. I'm trying for 5 minutes this morning trying to get it complete. It's not doing it. You have to have more snowfall than you have melt. Obviously, if you have more melting than you do snowfall, the glacier's going to end up going away. It's going to retreat. But glaciers move. And when we watched that documentary, it was a couple of weeks ago, the guy had mentioned something how the glacier was alive. I mean, it's not like alive like you and me, but they do move. They will increase and decrease in size depending on the temperature that wherever their environment is. They make noises, they crack, they groan, and they do move, and they move very, very similar to the way that the mantle moves inside the earth. Now, obviously, the mantle is extremely hot, and ice is extremely cold, but they both are plastic. They move. They don't necessarily do it quickly. Now, sometimes glaciers do. It's called a surge, but normally a glacier is a very, very slow moving body of ice. Currently, about 10% of the surface of our planet is locked in ice. Of all the water on the planet, 97% of the fresh water is in a glacier or a frozen status. Most of it's at the poles, not all of it. If it's not at a pole, it's going to be at a higher latitude or elevation. Two major types of glaciers. The big, huge, like ice cap kind of things, those are called continental glaciers. They're also called ice sheets. It's interchangeable. But both types of glaciers have a secondary term. The ones that are high up in the mountains, those are alpine glaciers. The continental glaciers don't have to necessarily be high in elevation. They're just going to be higher in latitude, or non-equatorial is the word that they keep on using. Continental glaciers move in all directions at the same time. Alpine or valley glaciers actually follow along the valley themselves, and they go from higher elevation to lower elevation. All of the ice motions will go from higher to lower, just like water. It's what it is. It's a frozen river. Now, what a glacier does do, especially up in the mountains, when they're moving underneath their own weight, it changes the shape of the landscape. They almost always follow was an original path that was cut by a river, and a river cuts a nice steep valley, V-shaped, whereas a glacier has, because of the erosive properties as it's moving across the land, it reshapes that V into a U. And you do not start glaciers. They might be able to be channeled, but you're not going to just stop it. It's one of the most destructive things that our planet can do. You just don't think of it. You think more like volcanoes, which is what we're going to be doing. More would be more destructive. But glaciers reshape entire, reshape anything they touch, not just a valley. Let me double check. Let's see. Whole bunch of terminology when we get to glaciers. A lot of the words are French, and I don't speak French, so I'm probably going to mispronounce a couple of them. The ice, so you have snow that falls and it settles, and you have more that falls on top of it, just like how sediment is laid down when you have rocks that erode. But under enough pressure it changes it into an extremely compact ice. You have enough ice, eventually it will start to move. And like I said, it does it in a plastic way. It's very, very, very slow moving solid. And there are some glaciers that move a lot quicker than others. Yes, there is. But you have to have more snowfall than you do melting. And obviously, you will not have a glacier anymore. It will retreat. And they do certain things when they retreat as well. There's certain formations that occur, which is how they figured out that we've had previous ice ages, because those glaciers are no longer there. Fading. It's not just ice. They have all different particle sizes of rocks, everything from extremely fine, like sand type grains, all the way up to boulders. You can tell the way that a glacier has moved by looking to see the way that these scrape marks are put on other rocks that were left behind. Sometimes the glacier will pick up the rock and take it with it, and sometimes it will just slide across the surface. If it just slides across the surface, the little rocks that are embedded within the glacier, the part that's actually moving across the earth itself, leaves behind these spore marks. That is called abrasion. Rocks that are actually picked up and moved from point A to point B, they call that the rock has been plucked. And then eventually, whenever the glacier decides that it's not going to move, it's not going to advance anymore, these rocks are left behind. There is. And these sort of U-shaped, almost like a bulldozer, is what a glacier does. When it stops advancing and it starts to retreat, it has these U-shaped structures. They're called moraines. Specifically, at the end of it, if it's at the tongue of the glacier, the very end of the glacier, it's a terminal moraine. But that is what they were looking for. Wegener did it, trying to prove his continental drift, which was not right, but it's how we know that the plates at one point in time were in different places than they are now, because there are no glaciers, but there's glacial evidence. Okay, I don't even want to push the thermometer buttons. It does what it wants. All right, so Specifically with alpine glaciers, there's a couple of different terms. They do move downhill from higher to lower elevation, just like a river from their own weight. But the top part of an alpine glacier is extremely fragile. The lower part is the part that moves. The upper part, it'll crack and break and fracture. Most glaciers are very, very, very slow. There are some, when we watched the thing on Iceland, I think he was saying it was moving 2 feet per day, something rather quickly, but most of them don't move that fast at all. They can move extremely quickly, and if they move very, very fast, around 60 meters a day, that's what's called a surge. And they will move everything that's in their path. Like I said, they might follow a channel, a river channel, but they will destroy everything that is within their path. Sort of like lava. Hopefully I'll get better sleep. Zone of accumulation is where the glacier is growing. If it is retreating, it is called a zone of ablation. It is, the technical term is that it is retreating. Surges are extremely quick. And I'm not sure if I put this image on the thing. I think I did, because it shows a bunch of the, yes, it's a very, very good canvas. A bunch of different terms that are all pinpointed because we are about to go through the bulk of these. Not every single one. There's a lot more vocabulary that's going to. Just got to figure out how to make this guy go. Okay, so all right. So here, I'm not used to this thing. I have to actually point it at my screen. I'm used to pointing it up here. This I don't think it. No. This is going to take a while for me to get used to. This top part that I just had highlighted. That is where the glacier originally forms. It is always a bowl shape in normally the very highest part. And then it ends up moving downhill. And with this particular glacier, because I don't have a cursor like I did before, you've got these sort of like lines. Those are eventually going to form what is called a moraine. They go with the direction of the motion of the glacier. Once it starts to retreat, the very, very front of the glacier is called a tongue. Once it starts to retreat, it leaves these moraines behind. But in general, the glacier is not going to start moving until it's at least 30 meters thick. It's almost 100 feet. That's the point at which we'll actually start moving. Oh, so much vocabulary. All right, whole bunch of words you're about to go through. This circular part at the top, the beginning of a glacier's formation, is a cirque. Like circle. It's most of these words are French. Now, not that if any of you speak French, you probably would be able to pronounce that better than me. I don't know if it's a reet or if it's a ret. That I'm not sure. But you have a very, very, very sharp ridge. And if I go back to that image, they're right here, high edges of that formation zone. If you have a pass, in order to sort of like a high mountain pass that you would think of to be able to drive through, with glaciers are called cols. That's on a whole bunch of terms. The very, very end, that bulldozer part, where all of the dirt, which is called till with the glacier, that's the term for all the sediment, the boulders, all the rocks that it pushes ahead in front of it, where it gets deposited once the glacier starts advancing. Those are called moraines. If it's at the very, 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 very end of it, that's a terminal moraine. It's at the very end. Glaciers do not sort particle size like rivers do. Rivers, the larger particles are going to be at the beginning of the river, and then your silt, the finest stuff, will be at the end of the river. But glaciers don't do that. They just push everything all together in one big ugly mess. If you have a small lake where the glacier originated from, it is called a pond. I don't think the Hanging Valley was in that image. So, most of them were. No, I do not see it on here. Yep, I don't see it on there at all. With the Hanging Valley, it's going to look like, it almost looks like it's perpendicular to what it should be with the motion of the glacier. A couple more, I'm going to show you a close-up of the moraine. And then I need to go through, we should finish early, so if you did not finish the one on mountains, you will have time to be able to do it. If it's a small lake that's at the beginning of the glacier, it's a tarn. I don't think it's on the next slide, I think it's on the one after that. When a glacier retreats, sometimes it leaves a chunk of ice behind, which then creates a new depression, which turns into a small lake. In order to be a tarn, it has to be where the glacier originated from, not where it finally ended up and then retreated. Those are called petals. And I've got pictures of those. The retreat? Yes, I do have to try to go to A-Hall. I think that's the one that's open. I'm pretty sure that this is. Normally, it's considered a retreat, but when it melts, it's called ablation. That's the fancy term for it, but most people just say that it retreats. Okay, when we watched the thing on Iceland, they talked about fjords. Very, 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 very steep inlets to the ocean. It's the difference between a trough and a fjord is specifically it's out to the ocean if it's a fjord. Till, I said this one out of turn, till is just all the rock, all the dirt, everything that the glacier just pushes at, just barrels everything out of its way. And like I said, in a glacier, this is not sorted. It's all just jumbled together, all different particle sizes, different types of rock. Anything that was in the way of the glacier, it just bulldozes out to the front of it. Let's see if you put more light on here. Couple people online. Nope. Oops. What can I do, Jimmy? Okay. This next slide, you guys don't have this in Canvas, but it shows you a couple of the things that have been mentioned. I said this dirt, this jumble of everything. In this particular image, if I can get this thing to go. So this is what is called a moraine. And it's, I can't really, I don't think I can zoom in with this remote. I didn't read all the instructions. But if you take a look at the rocks, it's just one big hot mess. Everything just is pushed to the front of this advancing glacier. Okay, kettles. Kettles are different than tarns. Tarns are lakes that are up at the origination of a glacier. The glacier has moved and it has retreated. And every now and then there's a large chunk of ice that's left behind, but that creates its own depression. As that chunk of ice melts, it creates these small circular lakes. And these things are called kettles. The last one that we're going to have is a running, because that was not originally on this one. I added that one in. You can tell the direction that a glacier moves by scrapes that are left behind as it's moving rocks that are embedded, that are frozen within the ice itself, and it moves across other rocks that are attached to the earth. They're all going in the same direction. Now, you may not necessarily know if it was like going east or west, but you know, you'd be advancing along that particular route. A drum, let's see. This guy, Drumlin, they have some towns, especially in Europe, where the towns are built on top of the drumlin, and there's always a steeper side, and then there's a more gentle slope. It shows you specifically the direction, because whichever is the higher side of this hill, this drumlin, that's the direction that the glacier came from. I'm pretty sure that is the last one. Let me check. I don't think there's another one. That's the last one. Let me choose it. And we have got quite a bit of time here. I wanted to make sure, you give me just a second. If we did not do the one on mountains, just a second, I can tell you. Go to the grade book. All right, let's see. So, we're not in 7th period. Here's you guys. It's taking forever to load. There we go. All right, so the stuff that is still open, like I said, they're pulling grades at 4 o'clock. I'm missing the opener from the 21st from Otis, and then both from Friday. Joseph, the opener from Friday. Caitlin, both from Friday. Sarah, the assignment from Friday. I don't think Caden's online. If you're online, Caden, the opener from Friday. Erica, both days. Child's not here anymore. Kale, the opener from Friday. Dylan, both openers from both days. Let's see. What was on that? It was Dylan. And then Colton, the assignment from Thursday, and then both from Friday. Let's see. Put this into the group. Now I've put everything into, of course, parent portal crashed. Excuse me, everything into parent portal. I will check this again. Oh my gosh, my computer is so slow. I will check this again.
What is the assignment from Thursday called?
It's mountain formation.
And then the Friday one?
The one from Friday was on ice ages.